Hi everyone and welcome to this week's last lesson of Scratch animation programming. Your starter for today is to have a little think about what you think the difference between a toy and a game is. Okay, it's a bit of a difficult question, but what is the difference between a toy and a game? Feel free to go and have a look on the internet and stuff to help you out. Okay, today's lesson is going to be focused on creating a game. We already made a toy, which is Etch-a-Sketch, and today what we're going to do is we're going to make a game, and we'll be successful in our learning today if we can first of all understand where variables are required within a game. We can learn how to create a variable in Scratch, and we're going to use variables in our code to make games interesting. Okay, first question I suppose, which is most important, is what is a variable? Well, the word variable means to change, okay? And basically what a variable is used for is to store a value when a program is running. They're used a lot in programs, especially in games, and I want you to just think if you can think of any examples of something that's stored when a program is running. Okay, here's some examples that I came up with. So sometimes you can get lives that are stored or health that's stored. You can get lives that's stored. You can get a timer. There's an example from Candy Crush. We've got moves potentially if you're using an app on your phone when you've got so many moves left. There's a score from Flappy Bird, so a score, the best score and the score that you've created. And then also you can get different bars for various other things. So this one's an example of hunger, for example, from the game Sims. Okay, so they're used for all different types of things. And as you can see, they're shown in all different types of ways. Okay, here's an example of a game called Pop Time that I often play. It's based on Simon's Cat, which is a cartoon character. And there's loads of examples of variables here. So I just want you to have a look around the screen, pause the video, and have a little think about where you can see variables being used within this program. Okay, hopefully you've paused the video and have a little bit of a think about it. I'm going to highlight all the variables that I found, but there could be some more. So number one, we've got up at the top left hand side here with the red circle around it now, it counts the number of animals that you've collected or the number of animals that you've saved, okay? And these can be found inside these little bubbles when you pop the different colours. Then we've got in the middle there the amount of stars that you've reached. So as you pop bubbles, you collect kind of scores and it kicks you up through the category so you can achieve like a bronze, silver or gold stars. Next one we've got on the top right hand side is the number of points you've currently collected based on how many bubbles you've managed to pop. We've then got count the orange bubbles that you've popped, which is down with this cat here. Okay, so she's in charge of the orange bubbles and her bar goes up, and then when it gets to the top she gets treats and you get some like magic trick shots you can do. Then we've got this one here, this cat's in charge of the green bubbles. It's a different type of trick shot you can do. We've got pink bubbles and lastly blue bubbles. So those are four separate different variables. The bars go up at different points depending on when you were to burst, for example, these 6 bubbles with the one the cat's got just now, then the pink bar would go up, okay? We've then got the number of bubbles that you have left to be able to throw up into the air, which is 10 at the moment, and that would count down for each shot you take. We've got special rainbow balls, so we've got 3 of them left, and then the last one is the tennis ball, so we've got 3 of them left. Again, all special moves. So in this very small, very quick playable game, you can see that we've got a large number. In fact, we've got 10 different variables that have been used on that screen to try and make that game interesting. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a game in Scratch called Car Racer, which is going to use a variable. Okay, so first of all, what we need to do is we need to know how to create a variable. You'll all now recognise this menu that we've got on the left-hand side here. To create a variable, we're going to the orange blob called Variables, and it will take us into this part of the menu, okay? Now it automatically always has a kind of dummy variable created called my variable, but what we want to do is create a variable with our own name, and we're going to use it for a timer to see how fast we can get around the racetrack. So you click on this button called make a variable. Now when you're in Scratch, when you click on that button, this box will appear, and inside this text box you can type any name for a variable. So we could have, if we think of that last game, tennis balls left, bubbles, pink bubbles, animals collected. You could call it anything you like. We're going to call ours time. Now it's always got 2 choices here. Do you want to make it for this sprite only or for all sprites? All of the games that we're going to create, that will be for all sprites. So anything you do in the future in computing, it will be for all sprites. Okay, when you're done, you press on the OK button. Now what happens when you press OK is 2 things. First of all, on the variables kind of tab, your time has been added there, and there's a wee checky box next to that. And what that text, the checkbox means is when it's clicked, is that that time will appear as a timer on your Scratch stage, and you can see that it's appeared there. Okay, just starting off at 0. If you don't want it to say the word time, you just want it to be a number, you double click on that and it appears as a number. You can double click it again and it appears in this third format with the kind of scrollable bar underneath. I actually prefer the first one. Now the good thing you can do about it as well is you can move it about the screen. So if you take that and move it over, you could move it here, you could move it anywhere. And that's really useful for today's task, because today what you're going to do is you're going to make a car racer game and you need to draw your own racetrack. And depending on where the racetrack goes, you might not want that timer to be on the top left-hand side. Okay, so this is the game you're going to create today. What I've done is I've drawn 2 different racetracks just to give you an idea of what you can do. My professional opinion would be if all of you start off with creating an easy racetrack and make sure your game is working correctly first, then you can go on to create as difficult a racetrack as you want afterwards. Because once you've got the programming correct and you've tested it and it's working, you can then go and make a really difficult racetrack to actually challenge maybe some of your brothers and sisters or your mum and dad into a game. So let's go and have a look at it actually working in Scratch. Okay, so here is my simple racetrack. You can see I've moved the timer up to the top right hand side. We've got my little car, my grey track, my green background, and my black kind of finish line at the bottom there. Okay, when I press the green flag, at the moment the program does nothing. It gives me time to put my mouse underneath the car, and then after a few seconds it starts, and the car you can see is following my mouse. Okay, it will stop when it gets 5 steps away, so you can use it. If you have it in front of it quite far, it'll do quite a fluid movement. If you have it really close, you can do quite a jerky movement. So it just depends what you want to do. Sometimes you have to go quite close to it and do it quite slowly if you want to go around sharp corners. But this is a nice easy one, as I said, to start off with. Okay, when I hit the black, you can see that my time stops and that I've won the program. It says time 27 seconds, 27.5 seconds. Okay, if I play again and I deliberately put my mouse over here so he runs into the green, you can see the time stops. Okay, so my timer is not, it kind of makes me lose the game and I go on to the green. All right, so that doesn't make the program work correctly. Now that works all fine, working absolutely beautifully, right? A couple of things that I want to point out. If you are making your car, okay, number 1, make your car. I actually made mine quite big to begin with, like this, and then I zoomed it in really small. Okay, and you can see what kind of size you want it to be based on your racetrack. So if it starts off really big like this, it's too big for your racetrack. You won't be able to get around the corner, so you need to make it smaller. If you do make it smaller, notice this grey part in the middle? That needs to be in the middle of your car. So you need to take your car and put it right smack bam in the middle there. Okay, and that means that, I think it's based on that wee cross, and that means that it's in the centre, so when you try and follow the mouse, it's not going to be off or lopsided or anything like that. So that car being in the middle there is really important. If you don't want to draw your own car, you could import a sprite, but I would encourage you to try and draw it. I just did mine really simply with some squares, red squares, black squares for the tyres, and then blue squares just for the kind of windows to make it look like a car from the top kind of bird's eye view. But you can do it any colour or shape and style that you want. Okay, so draw yourself a wee car. It's also really important, it says this in the instructions, that your car faces the right hand side, so it should be facing this side. And if you don't do that, then when your car starts to follow your mouse around the screen, it'll actually move sideways or go backwards if you draw it the opposite way. So make sure you draw it facing in this direction, please. Okay. Now when it comes to the coding, most of the coding once you've got the variable set up is nice and straightforward. The variable is actually used on the backdrop code, okay, here. So that's nice and set up easy once you've got it. The car, the most difficult bit of coding you've got is these 2 bits here. Okay, so you need to say that when it touches the colour green, it says you lose and then stops. And then if it's touching the colour black, it says you win and then stops. Okay, these wee bubbles might pop up, although they tend to stop or disappear quite quickly on this version of Scratch, okay? Now what's important is when it says touching colour, this colour of green needs to be the exact same colour of green as this background, and the black needs to be the exact same colour of black. Remember, computers, even if it's just a tiny shade out, in fact to the human eye it looks the same, the computers will know the difference. Now you do that by clicking on that button, and rather than trying to choose a shade, you click on this bit down the bottom here, and then you hover over the screen and you can pick. So you can see it's picking grey, picking green, or if we go down here it'll pick black. Okay, so you pick that green and then you're getting the exact right colour and shade that you're looking for, and you do that for the other one as well. Okay, so that's another thing to be careful of. Okay, if we go on to my backdrop, you can see that I have drawn a more complex stage. Now, when I try and play this, I'm going to encounter an issue. Okay, so press play and it's stopping straight away. Now, you might be able to notice that the reason for that is that it's on the green. Okay, so you've got a couple of ways to solve that. Because I've drawn quite a distinct racetrack, and you need to make sure that your racetrack always starts in this top left hand side corner. Okay, it can finish anywhere you want, but it has to start up here because of the coordinates and the coding that we've put on the car. The way to solve that is either we could change the coordinates slightly, so you know that if we changed that car just over a little bit like that, we wouldn't be on the green. Okay, so we could go into the code for the car and just change that ever so slightly up here to say minus 210. See what happens when we press stop and start. So that looks okay, but it's still quite big. So the other option could be that we could change the size of the car to smaller. Just remembering to resize it and put it back in the middle there. Okay, so we could try again with a smaller car. That'll make it easier for turning the corners things as well if you've come up with a quite complex game. So that works a little bit better. The other option would be, if I just stop that there, is you could go to your backdrop and you could obviously paint that bit there. Okay, so I could go to colour, I could do colour picker, pick that same grey that I had before, and then go back to my paintbrush and I could draw. Now, if you want to be able to draw nice and easily on this background, I would always suggest you click the button and convert it to bitmap. So it automatically always starts as a vector drawing. And for us, a lot easier to draw this racetrack if it's bitmap. So if you click that button when it says convert to bitmap, you'll get these other drawing options and you can fill in the green background and then draw this kind of grey coloured outsides. Okay, so that's kind of how you would fix it and how you play about with it. So hopefully you can all get that working. Right, to finish up today then, let's have a little look at our plenary. So here we've got a little ghost. When the space key is pressed, it sets the rotation style to left to right, and then a forever loop comes round and it changes the X by 10, it waits 0.2 seconds, and if on edge bounce, and it's not working correctly. So what is wrong with the code? We want the ghost to continually float from one side of the screen to the other and bounce off the edges of the screen. However, it keeps stopping when it gets to the right hand side. So why is this happening? Okay, so what block in there would you need to change, or what other things could you do to it? So have a pause, have a think, fill out your worksheet. Okay, do you understand where variables are required in a game? Could you give some examples of variables, just like the pop time? I can create a variable in Scratch. Well, hopefully you all know how to do that, and you can follow the instructions in the instruction book to create the one for Car Racer. And I can use variables in my code to make games interesting. So hopefully you've managed to create your Car Racer with the time. Maybe you could add some scores, obstacles, collectibles as part of your ninja task, or you could maybe even make multiple levels. Have fun with it, because this is your last week, and next week we're going to be looking at creating our animation before moving on to something else. Okay, evidence for this week, I don't need you to give me the whole program. What it would be nice to do is just to see what your top score is, what your hard racetrack looks like after you've managed to get it working. Maybe just a wee screenshot of, or a wee picture on your phone of what it looks like when you've finished your game, and if you've managed to get a good score or not. Okay, happy coding guys, and I'll speak to you next week. Bye.